Hello and welcome to this download from Blackwell Online. My name is George Miller, and my guest today is Esther Woolfson, whose book, Corvus, A Life with Birds, is a delight from start to finish, a wry, thought-provoking, and even at times moving account of what it is like to share your life and your home with a crow, a magpie, and a rook. Chicken the rook is undoubtedly the star of the show, so I began by asking Esther how she'd come across her.
Well, Chicken came into our lives when she was a fledgling. She was found by friends of my daughter's. They were at a guide camp out in the woods in Deeside near Corvus Castle. And we had doves and we had a cockatiel, and they assumed that since we had those birds, we'd know about everything that had fallen from its nest, so they brought Chicken to us. I think she was probably just learning to fly, because there was certainly nothing physically wrong with her that we took her in. And she's been with us, that was 20-odd years ago. And the name, well, I was reading, I used to read the New Yorker a lot, in fact I still do. I had just read about a drag artist called Madame Chickaboomskaya. And I don't know why, but I just thought, I think that we'll call her that. And of course it got shortened to Chicken, so it's rather confusing for people that I should have a rook called Chicken.
Now, for listeners who may not be familiar with the sort of distinctions between the different members of the corvid family, the crows and the rooks and the ravens, tell me what sort of characteristics mark out the rook, both physically and also in its sort of temperament and behaviour.
Rooks are the ones with the long beaks and the grey faces. They're primarily found in farming country. You see crows as well pottering about in fields, but rooks really are the ones that you most often see. So they've got the grey face. In character, they're like all corvids. They're incredibly intelligent. They're argumentative, but I think they're sort of slightly gentler in their. Or seem to be. I mean, I'm extrapolating from an experience of one, but in general, I think that they're rather sort of, I wouldn't say peaceable, but they seem to be rather sort of good-natured, pottering sorts of birds. Crows are the ones that you tend to see in cities more, with the slightly shorter black beaks, and black faces and beaks, and they seem to be a little bit more solitary. I mean, they do all flock together and roost together, but you tend to see them in pairs pottering about city parks and so on. Jackdaws have got the sort of silver eyes, and they've got flat panels of feathers down the side of their heads, and they've got a very distinctive sort of walk, sort of bobbing kind of forward walk. Ravens, nobody much sees ravens that much in this country. They tend to be sort of mountain country birds. They are meant to be the most fiercely intelligent of all birds, not just corvids. I mean, they are astonishingly clever creatures. All the corvids have got very large brains and are clever, but the ravens really sort of have it. And then there's the magpie, very obvious black and white, and they're, I would think, probably rival ravens in intelligence because they're amazingly intelligent.
In the course of the book, you take in a magpie called Spike, and it's very interesting to see the contrast in temperament and behaviour between Spike the magpie and Chicken the rook.
Very much so. I mean, Spike was not. I mean, Chicken's afraid of everything. Spike was afraid of absolutely nothing. He was completely fearless. He was incredibly inquisitive. He was very self-possessed. He could be quite aggressive, and I found him, this is value judgment, I found him incredibly charming and delightful and funny and absolutely fascinating. And of all creatures, there are very few who can demonstrate that they have self-consciousness. Elephants can, dolphins can, some of the higher primates, humans and magpies. And the way it's demonstrated is when, in experimental conditions, if you put a magpie in front of a mirror, shine a red light onto its breast feathers, it will start to preen itself, which shows that it's looking in the mirror and thinking, hey, that's me. For everything else will think, who's that? And assume it's another creature. And that's clearly a sign of great intelligence.
I thought one of the most astonishing scenes in the whole book concerned Spike the magpie, and it was when you came home and you could hear what sounded like your own voice. Tell me what happened that day.
Well, I came in once, and in fact, after that, I used to kind of creep in so that I would hear him doing it. And I hear a voice in the kitchen, and it is conversational, and it sounds, with all the intonation, somebody asking questions and chatting and commenting, not words, but in syllables, sounded incredibly like human speech. It did sound like me, and it was Spike. And he was practicing words. He was just practicing speech, having a dialogue with himself. I mean, he used to engage a lot in mimetic speech. He'd say hello beautifully and clearly, and which is something magpies do. They are fantastic mimics. But he was actually practicing human speach.
How big a repertoire do you think he had? Did you ever sort of try to count the items in his vocabulary?
It wasn't that vast. Well, he could say his name, and he could say several swear words rather embarrassingly clearly. And the odd thing, I think he probably knew a lot more than he'd actually demonstrated. I mean, what was one of his favourites. You come in and say, Spike, can you say, what? And this is obvious. I mean, again, he used it appropriately, so it's difficult to know if that was just pure mimicry or him knowing what he was saying. But very difficult thing, language and birds. You don't know. And I mean, some of the parrots, it is just purely mimetic. But then people have done work which has shown that they actually do have understanding. So I think it's actually a huge area of research that has not yet been done.
Now tell me, on a purely practical level, how did you and your household adjust to having corvids flapping about the place? Because they're not normal. I was going to say they're not normally considered pets, but one of the things your book reveals is that Dickens and Capote and Mozart and Byron all had corvids as pets. Maybe I should rephrase that.
Yes, well, it sounds odd to say, but we really didn't think about it. We, chicken arrived, and we sort of thought, oh, right, she's landed on us, and we didn't think of anything else we could do. We said, keep her, and I mean, I suppose it's much the way you get a dog or a cat or something, and it fits into your life somewhere and potters about. Once they've been away from the wild for a short time, it's very difficult. I mean, you can reintroduce them, but you need space and you need to know what you're doing. And I mean, I probably wouldn't be able to now. So we, when she got large enough and started flying about, we clipped her wings so that she can't bump into she can't fly into a wall or anything. We couldn't do that with Spike because there would have been no point. Because what he did, he moved by jumping. So he would leap onto a chair and onto the fridge and up to the top of the kitchen. So it didn't make any difference. And he actually did fly about the house. But he was of course much smaller and much more maneuverable. He could kind of fly around corners and upstairs and riding about, and it didn't really make that much difference.